Awesome, me too. Speaking of which, I see something flying around, but I think that's just dust. Like, is that dust or is that because I have that weird luck with people?
You never know.
Welcome back, you guys, to my channel. This is Paranormal Geek. My name is Maria, if you're new here. Today, our special guest is Micheal Scott from Ghost Paranormal on YouTube. He is a paranormal investigator that runs that same channel. Thank you for coming to the show to hang out with me. I've been watching your channel for a while, and I didn't really notice that until the other day. Like, wait, I've been watching his videos before.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to be here and chat with you. I always have fun, chatting with people, talking about experiences and ghosts and paranormal and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome, me too. Speaking of which, I see something flying around, but I think that's just dust. Like, is that dust or is that because I have that weird luck with people?
You never know.
Okay, I've actually captured before talking to like my friends on here. Like, we'll be talking and I'm like quietly looking and like, nah, I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, you never know. Like, it's funny because usually once you start talking about the paranormal, it's almost like they hear you and they're like, "Oh, is that my cue? Here I am." And they
Yeah,
just
can
kind
I
of
come
pop
in?
up.
Yeah. So, our first question, what got you actually into the paranormal and why?
It's weird because it's probably a boring answer, but it was nothing specific. You know how some people just love football or sports or gaming. I've just always loved horror movies,
Uh,
scary, spooky stuff, Halloween, ghosts. And I think that love of the entire paranormal field is kind of what made me jump into it. When I was growing up, I would see TV shows of people in horror movies or ghost hunting, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to be somewhere spooky. I want to be with the ghosts. I want to, like that's what like. I was just always drawn to it, and so I would say when I was around like 15, when all the kids from high school were going to parties, I was going to graveyards with my friends and dragging them into graveyards with me. They were okay with it. I think they would rather have been at the party, but I'm like, no, let's go do this. So it's just something that I've always been into, always been drawn to.
you know what? I think I've always been like that too, but I never noticed until later, like when I was like around my teens, that I started asking my mom, "Can I get this book at the store? Can I get this?" And that's when I know, like, wait, I think I'm not like the other kids.
Exactly. Yeah, and I feel like, my mom, she's always kind of been into the paranormal as well. She had some stories growing up of when she would go to visit her aunt, and they would hear stuff at night, and the chandelier in the hallway would be swinging by itself and stuff like that. And so I think her openness to it and her stories also kind of made me want to go further down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that happened to me with my dad. My dad always told me the stories, and I'm like young, like 6, 10, and he's like telling me all these crazy stories. And my mom's like, "You don't think she's a little, a little bit saying that?" And she'll be fine.
I know. Yeah, a lot of times people will ask, when did you see your first horror movie or something like that? And thinking back, I'm like, God, I think I was maybe like 8 years old or something like that, or like a really young age. And I remember it was on Halloween. I had gotten home from trick or treating, and the movie Halloween was on,
Wow.
and I just really wanted to watch it. So my mom sat down with me to make sure I wasn't going to freak out during it. And I just remember watching it with her, and Halloween and I think Child's Play. Those were like the first spooky movies I ever watched.
I think that's the first one I saw. But I got chickened when I was like, I think I was 7 or 6 too, though. And my mom's like, "You gotta go to the room. You can't watch this." And I kept, "No, no, I want to see. I want to see with daddy. I'm here with daddy." I remember it. And my dad let her watch it. I'm like, but I was like this watching Chucky.
I know. Well, and like, I think the second Child's Play, I think came out in the very early 90s.
Uh-huh.
So I was still under 10 years old. And my mom took me to the movie theater to see Child's Play 2 because I wanted to see it so bad. And so, yeah, I've just always been this weird kid that likes spooky stuff.
you're into investigations, so like when really did you get into investigating then? Like what made you go, I should go out and start investigating instead of just watching it on TV or like watching movies?
I think it was around the same time, like when I was 15 years old, 16 years old, when I was going with my friends to graveyards. I wanted to catch evidence that there was something there. So what I would bring back then was my dad's camcorder. You know, those ones that used to like sit on your shoulder, those big huge things. And so I used to take that with me to the graveyard, and you know, we'd be filming in the dark with flashlights and trying to catch orbs and stuff like that. But you know, back then I didn't realize that almost everything we caught were bugs. But you know, that's kind of where I started, and since then I kept going back. I want to say for the first couple of years, the only places I investigated were graveyards because I was a teenager. I was young. I didn't know how to get into different places, and you know, places are expensive too. So I didn't have the funds to get into places and investigate them. So, but yeah, I've been doing it for a long time, long time.
Wow. I think you beat Zach then today because Zach and Zach and I think it was 2006. Zach, I had something really crazy happen to me, and that's when I started looking into it again. Like that's cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
and you know, and back then when I first started, it was, you know, you learn as you go. So everything that happened back then, every little bump I would think was paranormal or was a ghost. And as you go on, you learn to think more critically and debunk things, and you want to weed out what is natural and what's supernatural, and all those things you just kind of learn along the way.
So I'm going off, not off, but that made me think of something. So in your belief, if I may ask, like, do you believe 100%, or you are like the type of person like you're skeptic until you see something like whoa?
So I'm
I'm
it's hard to
sorry.
say. No, you're fine. It's hard to say because I am one of those see it to believe it type of people. Um, I do firmly believe that there are spirits. I do believe in an afterlife. But still to this day, I still haven't seen like a full apparition. And I've been doing this for a very long time. I've seen things move out of the corner of my eye. I've seen shadow people, stuff like that. But as far as seeing like what looks like a person standing in front of me, I still haven't seen that. And that's one of the things that I'm still kind of like really wanting to see. And I'm like, when am I going to see this? Is it real? Do people really see these things? Because I haven't seen it yet. And I'm sure once I do see it, then I'm be like, oh, this is what everybody's talking about, you know? But I try to stay kind of skeptical while investigating just so that I can debunk things as I go. Because, you know, a lot of times you will catch a bug or a speck of dust or something. And you just have to really think through it and think what else could this be before deciding that it's paranormal.
I think I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I definitely believe there's something out there, but I like to see it too for
Yeah,
myself.
I'm the same. Even though I've seen things myself, I'm like, no, because I always try to look for that explanation, and then I usually
Hmm.
find it, and I'm like, but I want to know. I keep looking
Yeah.
for, yeah.
Yeah, even with the, you know, even listening to other people's experiences, as many experiences as I've had, even when I'm listening to other people tell their experiences and they're just these crazy off the wall things that have happened to them, there's always a little bit of skeptic in me. And I'm like, well, could it have been this? I mean, maybe it was your imagination. Maybe it was really dark in the room. I'm still skeptical of a lot of people's stories. And I would hope they would be skeptical of mine too, and really, you know, kind of question it, because, you know, that's kind of how we get further along, by debunking things, learning what isn't real, what is. And it helps each other grow as well as investigators, because somebody might know something you don't know, and through that experience and talking about it and debunking, then you know during your next investigation that, oh, this is what it is, you know.
Yeah, that's what I find fascinating. There's a time when I started getting into like the mind side of the psychological perspective of it, and I started to think, is it could just be all in the mind? But then I started going into more research, and I realized it could be a little bit more than what it is because of the. I was seeing this episode. I think it was with a psychic, and it started like it could be with how you could affect the environment around you too. Like I've heard of that, and it could, and then because of the way what happened to us, it could be. That's the only way. I'm like, yeah, of like, there's a name for it. It's not telekinesis. It's like, it's Poltergeist, but it's like if you're under a lot of stress and you are like a little bit psychic or something, and you don't know it, it starts to like, and it may look like a ghost, but it's not really a ghost. It's just your very own energy moving things around and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's poltergeist activity is really what it is, because, and I think some people get confused a lot of times with the term poltergeist, or will use it wrong. And they'll use poltergeist almost like a haunting or ghost or spirit, when poltergeist activity is really caused by living people. People usually, somebody that's going through puberty or going through a lot of stress or traumatic events in their life, a lot of times they're creating this with telekinesis and things moving in their house and stuff like that, and they don't know they're the ones creating this haunting in their home.
I find that so interesting, because then you realize, well, wait a minute, and then as a human or a person, you have like so much more that you don't know yet. Like people don't know how much more of a power they have.
Exactly. Yeah, no, seriously, it's true. And that's one of the things that investigating does, is you have to remember to ask a lot of questions, and questions like, does the activity circulate around one person? Does the activity stop when that person's not in the house? Because if those are like yes answers, then it could be more of a poltergeist haunting, where one person is creating this, madness around them, and when they leave the house, then it stops.
Yeah, I find that interesting.
I know. I personally, I haven't experienced poltergeist activity. I haven't been, on an investigation where somebody is creating that energy, but I would love to one day. That'd be really cool.
Well, if I would have known you about 15 years ago, I invite you home. It's in Milwaukee.
15 years too late.
In Milwaukee, I don't know what it is. I know what it was, but did you see that? Here it is in slow motion. I don't want to say like go too into it because it's kind of more private anyway, but it did have an effect, and I'm starting to understand after being my age now that it could have been because of all that. That's what caused. We could have just had a poltergeist at home. And
off topic, are you live in Milwaukee or from Milwaukee?
Used to.
Oh, I grew up in Wisconsin. I grew up in like the Appleton area.
Oh my God! Stop.